Today's guest has an incredible story, but more importantly for you, she started her own nonprofit that is like, okay, whoops, that is very get in touch with her specifically in California. I always say that we have more clients in California than anywhere else in the world. It's like the epicenter of who knows what going on. No offense, but but anyway, thank you so much for coming on, Agape. And before we even start, because we're going to be talking about resources, how easy or what? No, what do you think the main reason that victims of domestic violence have when it comes to getting like a difficulty, I should say? What's the biggest difficulty they have to getting connected with resources?
Definitely knowing where to find the resources. When you're in that space, your emotions are definitely covering a lot of the logic, and not like it's logical on where to go to find the resources. You don't know where to go to find them until you start looking for them. And that is, that's the biggest challenge, is knowing where to go to actually find the resources that are helpful to your specific needs.
Yeah, and I think on top of that is maybe even not even knowing that you're really in an abusive relationship. I felt like that's such a huge issue too, is people consider domestic violence only physical, and they have no idea about all of the resources out there and how bad emotional and all the other kinds of abuse are, right?
Yes, definitely. Oh my gosh, there's so many, right? I mean, from digital to psychological, verbal, covert narcissism, I mean, financial, economical, you name it. And that's interesting too, because a lot of people, ask, well, what's the difference between financial abuse and economic, abuse?
Hmm.
Finances, I think, is pretty clear cut, right? You don't have control over your own money and things of that nature. The economical side is more like, if you are the person that's on the abuser's, say, life insurance or health insurance or dental insurance, any sort of, thing that they cover you on. So, I'll take you off of my health insurance. You won't be able to see the doctor,
Hmm.
things like that. Also, oh man, I just had a good one in my brain that I was like, oh, that would be great to say, and it just slipped that fast. I'm sorry.
No, 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 that's okay. There's so many. I know when we were talking about the different types of abuse, like one that many people have never heard of is revenge porn. And that's when somebody threatens, if you say, I'm going to leave you, or if they sense that you might leave, they threaten to publish sexual images of you that doesn't just hurt you, but your reputation. It can affect your job. And I know when Chris and I went to Barbados and we trained attorneys and domestic violence advocates there, they said it's a huge issue in that community because the family is affected. So there's all kinds of different abuse that many people, again, don't even realize they're dealing with. But before we keep talking without introducing you, Agape, say who you are and a little bit about your background and what you do.
Well, thank you. Yes, Agape Garcia is the name. I am the founder of Confronting Domestic Violence. Our mission is to provide real-time resources to real-time victims, and we help with relocation assistance when families have a safe place to go and not the means to get there. We believe that every child deserves to feel safe at home, and no parent should have to leave everything behind or resort to homelessness when they're leaving us for safety.
Yeah. So how did you land in this field?
Oh my gosh. Yeah, it wasn't planned. Uh, I, I survived a double attempted homicide about 20 years ago. I was 8 months pregnant. I was over 1,000 miles away from home. I had an 8-year-old daughter present at the time. And, that was unfortunately that covert control that I was not aware of. And so flashing forward, 18 years later, I was in a major car accident that resulted in a 1% chance of me surviving 2 times in the same accident. And I just laid there in ICU petitioning my creator, why are you sparing my life again? Like what is it? What am I supposed to be doing? And
Mhm.
so from ICU, Confronting Domestic Violence was born. I decided to bridge the gaps where, they were most prevalent for me in my situation so that, others don't have to go through similar uncharted waters that I did.
Yeah, I remember when we first talked, you said something like, I don't know how many calls you had to make before you could find resource. Tell us about what that was, that experience.
Oh my gosh, I can feel it like it was yesterday. Talk about having thick skin and tenacity and not giving up. I mean, it really is, sink or swim type of ordeal, right? So I'm calling these 800 numbers, 1-800 numbers. I called over 800, okay, before I got somewhere.
800,
Yes. And
800.
over 800. I'm telling you, like, I call and they're like, okay, call this number. And I'll call this number, call this number. Everywhere I called, they were just giving me another number to call.
Yep,
A
relatable.
lot of them were disconnected. Some of them were just like repeat numbers that I got from somebody else that ended up sending me over there. And are you kidding me? Forget it. It was like I couldn't even keep track of it. I was just so desperate for help that I just kept calling whatever number I was given, tell the story and see who can help. And I now have like a full understanding of, what is really needed up front. And, I will always say a domestic violence advocate. I will always say that, no matter what state you're in, if you can't find an advocate by asking your local, resource center or community center, then you contact the general attorney and you ask them where can they find in their pool of folks a domestic violence advocate because they're the
Yeah.
ones that are tapped in with, the victim rights. They understand the legislative laws that are in place and the different programs and things that you can do, and they can act as a referral for you.
Yeah, I mean, I actually got my certification years ago as a domestic violence advocate, and of course, from my own experience. But it was a whole new world, like getting connected with the domestic violence center. I thought in the past that domestic violence centers were for battered women only. And even though there was physical violence at the end of my relationship, I kept minimizing it and thinking, well, it's not that bad. So that's not me. And I think that's how a lot of people feel. Do you find that where they're just like, that's something different. I don't belong to that group of people.
Well, yeah, especially when you are in those group sessions, right? And you're I'm laughing. It's not funny. I mean, I was there,
Yeah.
and I'm listening to these people, and it's like, I think each and every one of us are in a different mindset because the emotional toll and role that it plays on us. So it's like, some people are there and they're just really like devastated to the point where they cannot wrap their head and around what happened and comprehend like what to do next versus somebody that's like, okay, I know what I need to do next. I just need to find the help that I can get in order to get to that space to do what's next. And it's just like, it gets a little frustrating and challenging to navigate because, and again, we're talking about that group setting, right? It's like
Mhm.
you're not really vibing with what's going on, and you are in a different space, but we're all here collectively together to talk and receive a message versus like really like go there and talk about what you need and get the resources that you need and then go about leaving you go about your day leaving that space to go and do what you need to get done.
Yeah,
you
you know
know
what I
that
find sometimes in group settings, especially because we have a weekly legal abuse support group. But I know when we first started years ago, when we had different people at different stages of the process, one thing we noticed that many of them had in common was that they would minimize the abuse. And I remember very specifically, there was one woman who was listening to other people talking, and she said, I feel like mine isn't that bad. And then she went on to talk about how her ex had thrown her out of a moving car. But she was saying, I feel like I don't belong here because mine's not that bad. I'm just like, we see this all the time. It just happened this past weekend where someone was earlier in the process and they said, I don't want to take up other people's time. She was dealing with her own stuff too. And we have men as well where they're just like, oh, I feel like I don't know if I qualify as being that bad, but everyone's been through something horrific. And that's why you're here. And you really should recognize that you deserve to be here and you deserve to get access to resources, including emotional support.
Absolutely. And, I don't know what the common theme or denominator is for all of us to kind of minimize what it is that we're going through. It could be, my opinion is that, it just could be that we don't want to accept it. We can
Mm.
acknowledge it, but accepting it is a totally different, type of need. And, once you acknowledge it, you must accept, because that's the only way that you're going to start seeing what you don't deserve, and having to kind of make a decision based on identifying options for yourself. So a lot of times it's that fear of the unknown, of the changes, that lack of self-confidence, of like, oh my gosh, am I going to be able to do it? It's like all these doubts and questions. And I think the combination of fear and finances is definitely what really helps, create that space of minimizing and unfortunately staying.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I know, I just remember the stats of like it takes an average of 7 to 9 times to get away. And that's why with us, with what I told you, what Chris and I do, we work with people once they have really decided to go, whether they're out or they're not, but they have to get in that mind space of like, I'm done and I'm moving forward, because it's a waste of everyone's time and energy and money to like try to convince someone that they're in an unhealthy relationship. They really need to get to that point themselves. Do you
That's
agree?
right. I agree 100%. I'm in that same boat. I can only help you when you know what help you need, and that your mind is already made up that you're not going back. My whole
Mhm.
thing is preventing that cycle of
Yeah.
return. I have, collaborated. I am in collaboration with multiple agencies that serve the community, and it's for that exact reason, to help prevent that cycle of return. Because to your point, 7 to 9 times, right?
Yeah.
So
Average.
yeah, that's the average, right? Exactly. And we never know who is on the other line, where their feelings and thoughts are, or that tenacity that they have behind them. You know, it's a 50-50, right? But we don't treat anybody different. We give, the resources based on understanding the needs. We help. And then if they're repeat clients, then they're repeat clients. But yeah, you have to know that you're ready.
Yeah, yeah. So what do you think are some other misconceptions about domestic violence or abuse? Like we talked about minimizing, like, oh, mine's not that bad. What are some other
Oh
things
my
you see
gosh,
a lot?
there's so many, right? Like,
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, just embarrassment, just feeling ashamed and embarrassed, because think about it. If you are, a well-to-do individual, your title in corporate America or in the world, your pockets are nicely,
Deep.
filled. Yeah. There's just so many things, especially when you are, respected in the community, or your influence on others is, valued very highly. And, it's almost a shame, ashamed that you are, that you didn't see it, or that you're in it, and now you're like, oh my gosh, I didn't even realize that I'm in it. Now that I do, how do I get out, and how do I make people aware? I mean, I think that's where a lot of the hush mouth, the quiet, the tight lips come in from, right? We don't want to share it. But I also think that there's this huge social stigma behind it, like I was just sharing, oh, they're going to think of me differently, or my influence is going to be different, my impact is going to be different. No, not really. It's not. The statistics are what they are, and
Right.
those statistics are based on those that actually have, filed something officially. There's so many that have not said anything officially, so that's not even on record. But so many of us has been there and gone through it, that you would be amazed by the outpour of help that you would get, mentally, emotionally, like resources, just anything and everything. So I don't know, I feel like I'm rambling. Did I answer your
No, no,
question?
no, that's okay. That's okay. And talking about the statistics, so I just went to our local walk the walk over the weekend, and they gave the statistics. I know it's 1 in 3 women. I thought it was 1 in 5 men. They said it was 2 in 5 men. 1 in 3 women,
Okay.
2 in 5 men, they said, and which I was double, again, the amount that I thought. But in terms of people feeling like there's a stigma, I many of our clients are like very successful in other areas, and they are looked at as the role models in the community. And I think there is that added level of shame or layer of shame, because if they talk about it, they hear comments like, well, I never thought you of all people would fall for someone like that. And so they feel like, embarrassed, like you said, to bring it up, because again, they're looked at as these role models. But it happens to everybody. And I think part of the reason why someone is targeted is because they're so successful, because they're so amazing and responsible. Like we call our clients our shining stars. Like that's why a parasite attaches itself to you, because they're getting so much. You're making that person look good, your success, your beauty, whatever it is that you have, all your talents. That's why they picked you. It's not because of weaknesses, it's the opposite.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And, and I think the misconception for people that aren't in it, that, just have ideas like, well, why don't you just leave? Why don't you just change your situation? Just go somewhere. It's like you don't understand. It's not, if it was that easy, it would already be done. It's not like that.
It's the opposite of easy. It is like, it can seem completely insurmountable, especially when you have children. And
Oh my
sometimes
gosh.
because your kids are like, why are you doing this? Like, I don't want this to happen. I mean, there's so many ways that kids are also weaponized in these situations.
Oh yes, and we won't even get into how the abuser can use the court system as an additional weapon and tool to manipulate, stalk, and coerce. We'll just leave that alone for another topic because that's
Well,
a whole
that's our
nother.
specialty. Legal abuse, that's our specialty. So yeah, no, this is about you. Let's
Oh
talk
my
about-
gosh. But that can drag out longer than the actual relationship.
I know. I know. I remember doing a post saying my divorce was longer than my marriage, and many people going, I know.
Yeah, and it's crazy because the mental, the emotional, financial impact that has on you, it's just like it feels like it's never ending. Oh my goodness. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I think another misconception that folks have is that, these victims slash survivors, I like to say survivors, um, that it's a issue at home, that it doesn't impact the workplace. Like they don't show up to work every day.
Uh,
That's a total misconception. Like, where do you think a survivor feels the safest?
right.
Probably at work.
That's
you
why it
know,
was so hard with COVID, because there was no escape.
there was no escape. COVID created a pandemic within the pandemic. Domestic violence was on the rise. I mean, I think that we hit
Yeah.
record calls coming into the national hotline. Oh my gosh. I mean, it was really bad. And I feel so bad for the children that were exposed to that. 90% of the children in a domestic violence home are eyewitnesses to the abuse. 90%
Mhm.
are
Wow.
eyewitnesses. Yeah. So I cannot even imagine what COVID did for those individuals. And then you hear the ripple effect of, well, now it's mandatory you come back to work. You don't even know who's coming back to work. That person is a changed person, especially
Mhm.
if they were in a situation where it was toxic.
Yeah.
Now that's definitely coming to work. That the toxicity or that attitude of the person. But I would really like to start talking a little bit about how the domestic violence spillover comes into the workplace in so many different forms.
Yeah.
I mean, how many of us have dealt with, if it wasn't ourselves that was going to work, because I was one of them,
Mhm.
but how many of us have gone to work and there's a coworker that's talking to you about that situation? Clearly they are emotionally distraught.
Mhm.
They don't want to talk to anybody else about it because they're in fear of what the job is going to think, do, react, whatever. So they're talking to their co-workers about it. So that's like, productivity is going down, distraction is increasing. Who knows if the individual is in the parking lot waiting, or if they're looking to tailgate and piggyback to enter into the building. They're definitely harassing them on the phone. They'll even call the office and get to your desk phone if you're not answering your cell phone. I mean, it can go so deep. And, not only was I the employee, that went to work for all of the, safe reasons, and the resources were there, like that phone, you know,
Mhm. Yeah.
um, but I've also been a manager and dealt with employees that were dealing with a domestic violence situation. And back then, there was nothing in place. You had to just kind of take um, you had to make a personal decision do I want to help this person? I'm not obligated, but do I want to? And then
Mhm.
what does that look like? And am I going to put myself in danger? How can I help this person where it's not crossing lines either, right? Like we have a professional relationship. I can't get into your personal stuff, but I would like to be able to help in some way. And then I've been HR where I've dealt with individuals that are dealing, with domestic violence. And I have yet to come across an employee assistance program that has resources for victims that are showing up to work. I know that they have it if you like have alcohol abuse problems or porn addiction or gambling addictions. Like there's resources for those
Mhm.
individuals, but I have yet to see a program where domestic violence is there for them. You know,
Yeah.
I've also been a consultant for corporate security, access control specifically, and oh my goodness, I saw a lot more in that industry under that role than I had as just a coworker, manager, HR person.
Well,
I
I didn't
mean,
even think about that.
oh yes, oh yes, and this is where we get like down and dirty into the weeds because California passed that law, SB 553.
Tell us about that.
Yes. So SB is the Senate bill. It passed through legislation. It went into effect last year, July 1st. Cal OSHA is the enforcement agency, and it's a workplace violence prevention plan. It's mandatory to have in place. Domestic violence spillover is a part of that. It's understanding human behavior, paying attention enough, I guess, to see human behavior and identify what could potentially be, ill will or at risk. And then having the measures in place to help prevent it. If it can't be prevented and it starts taking place, we'll have measures in place to mitigate because you have to respond. You are a first responder while you're waiting for the emergency responders. Okay. So if you don't have a communication plan, if you don't have drills, if there's not continuity, whether it's with your neighboring company or your local law enforcement or whoever you have third party at your establishment, it's so much detail that you need to have in place to really be able to identify, prevent, respond, and recover.
So
It's
this
multiple layers.
so now it sounds like domestic violence is part of requirements for workplace safety.
So yes, it is. And I am I'm going to say gung ho about it because I know that OSHA on a national level, they have a workplace violence prevention requirement, right? But it's basically just a policy and it really just deals with coworkers, employees, right? This is the first time that a state is actually creating their own requirements and it's through the enforcement agency is Cal OSHA, but this is the first state that's taking it to the next level and saying no, we need to also include domestic violence as a part of the plan. And it's not just a written policy. Like you need to understand how to physically, verbally respond, make decisions and respond. You need to know how to act on it. So I do believe that this requirement, and I am in touch with workmen's comp risk managers. I want
Mhm.
to know how it's impacting their industry, right? Because does the
Yeah.
company need to be compliant in order for them to put in a claim? Do they have to show that they had these preventative, mitigative measures in place to prevent it from happening in order for that claim to be valid? Okay, so if they're after me, but seven other people get hurt, and I'm not talking about active shooter, I'm just saying like any sort of object. It could be,
Mhm.
punches that are being,
Yeah.
swung around, whatever the case is, how is that impacting the industry? And then I'm taking it to that other level. If this mandate is, in place and you're required to have this response mechanism intact, then do you have resources for them so they can seek outside help and have their own prevention measures and perhaps escape plans in place? So it's very interesting because I see it with the potential of unfolding in so many areas, but right now they're just kind of focused on the bill, and I'm like, no, I want to focus on the full circle.
That this is so exciting. I mean, California was one of the first to pass, if not the first. It was, I know it was Hawaii and California were the first two states to pass coercive control laws. So it's like you guys are ahead of the rest of us and you're paving the way.
Yes, and usually, a lot of things actually do start in California, and then it ripples across the
Yeah.
nation. And I know that, like Oregon and Washington, New York, they have picked up some of
Hmm.
it, but we are very strict. When I read the bill, I was like, oh my gosh, this is my personal and professional life all tied into one. Like, I have I have volunteered for Cal legislation, pro bono advisor for over a decade. I identify loopholes, report them to the, legislative writer, and programs are created to close those loopholes, specifically under public safety and privacy, right? So also California is a huge leading state on programs and privacy rights for victims to stay safe, to not be found when, the abuser is trying to locate them.
Hmm.
Obviously, we have our own things that we need to do too, like stay off social media. you know but I mean, like, your address that would typically be public record, it goes into, a program, and it is kept as confidential, so it cannot be found on the internet. There's so many things out there. I can talk for days and days on resources and things to do, but the SB 553 Workplace Violence Prevention Plan is required. There's only two industries that are exempt, and that's the healthcare industry and law enforcement industry. Why? Because both of those industries have their own workplace violence prevention plan that they need to abide by.
Hmm.
Only because, it's definitely heightened in those areas. But back to the statistics, 1 in 3 women, you said 2 out of 5 men. So if you have 100 employees, at least 30 of them are dealing with a situation.
Isn't that insane?
It is insane, absolutely insane.
Yeah.
But that just
Wow.
puts it into perspective. My personal opinion is that domestic violence is going to spill over into the workplace before a slip and a fall happens.
Hmm. Yeah.
Based on the numbers alone. I mean, you can't deny that.
Yeah. I love how this workplace violence prevention program covers domestic violence. It's like there was nothing else, but you kind of folded it into this, and everybody cares about workplace safety, right?
That's
Everybody wants to feel safe at work.
That's right. And I have a little bit of a tidbit for you. So I have a direct contact with Cal OSHA here, and they advised that, any call, it could be a whistleblower, it could be a slip and a fall, like I mentioned earlier, any reason that is going to have Cal OSHA knock on the door and say, what the heck is going on here? We got a complaint, or there was something filed. They're going to ask, where's your SB 553 plan? So it's not like they're knocking on the door saying, are you compliant? Are you compliant? No, but if they're already there for any other reason, they're going to ask.
That's excellent. This is so exciting.
Oh my gosh, I know. I get so, I feel like I get on my soapbox when we get on this conversation, but
It's great.
it really is exciting because it's about time that, there are resources and there is an open door to, victims that are showing up to work every single day, that they can go and talk to somebody about it and seek that help. Confronting domestic violence, like, we offer this training. We've provided this SB 553 training to a school district already, some local, more family-owned businesses in Sorrento Valley that want to be, make sure that they're dotting their I's, crossing their T's, and have their staff trained. And that's because they also have a lot of contractors that they send out into the field. So for
Mhm.
those entities that could possibly be, vendors, contractors, with corporate clients, you definitely want to make sure that you have that policy in place, because you have to have that collaboration together. So there's a lot of ins and outs of the bill that can be tricky if you don't understand all of the requirements, and it falls under the labor law. Human resources is expected to have, all the knowledge and put all of this stuff into place and have it ready to go. But in actuality, like, if you really don't understand domestic violence, violence in general, if you don't understand how to, tap into what you already have, I call it maximum utilization of available resources. What do you already have in place that, this bill requires. So it's not even retraining the folks. It's just taking what they already have training in. It's applicable to this bill. Now just make this a part of your plan. So when you are doing a drill, it's almost like muscle memory, right? You
Yeah,
already know
yeah.
where to go. You already have your staged, space for head count and things of that nature.
It's like
Um,
codifying. It's just codifying things.
That's right. That's right. So we come in with that approach just to, reduce interruption of day-to-day activities and make sure that you're compliant, not just written, but also in the physical training side of stuff. So, our next bucket is how do we become one of those third-party vendors that, as a resource like they have for the gambling, the alcohol and the porn addictions. They should definitely have something for domestic violence as well.
Yeah.
We would love to do that.
Yeah. So tell us a little more about your agency too, what you can do, because when you were telling me, I was like, oh, I got to tell all of our California people. And I'm sure you'll get ones from different parts of the world who are trying to, get help because why not?
Yeah, for sure. And, even though I was talking about SB 553, there are companies, corporations across the nation that it's by choice, right? A lot of companies do things based on the culture, what their culture
Mhm.
is, what they stand
Mhm.
for, what they represent. So even though SB 553 may not be a mandate across the nation, it's a choice. You can have a workplace violence prevention plan, which includes domestic violence spillover if you want to.
How can somebody, let's say someone listening now, how can they approach their own company to adopt this kind of workplace violence prevention plan?
Well, if you're an employee and you just want to know where is it, you just walk up to your HR rep and ask, "Hey, I just heard about SB 553. This is like, domestic violence spillover into the workplace and prevention of it. Do we have that yet? I'm really excited to learn more about it." Or I used to work with somebody who was, a victim, and oh my gosh, I would love to know, like, what do we have in place? You could
Hmm.
just ask. There should
Yeah,
be a poster somewhere, honestly.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, asking. Now, if you are HR rep and this falls under you, under the labor law, and it's on you to do, well, stop spending all of your time and spinning your wheels. Go to confrontingdomesticviolence.org,
Yeah.
go to the professional training side tab, and we have a free mini assessment that you can take, just asking, high level questions to kind of get your wheels spinning a little bit. And then, every organization is different. It's like people. Every organization has their
Mhm.
own DNA. Every organization is ran a little bit differently and just has different needs. So everything is customizable. And again, utilizing available resources, so you're not having to spread your wings or your pockets so thin.
I love we take the bottoms up approach. So instead of like, oh, I have to wait for the system to change, I love that this is something that people can do themselves, bottom up, grassroots, this way rather than top down.
That's right. And, that's another way that we're looking to fund ourselves. Obviously, with today's climate and grant money being revoked, specifically for domestic violence organizations, this is a way that we're looking to, have sustainability and fund ourselves. So we're providing this, professional services for that specific reason. Also, we know it. We're the subject matter experts in it. So
Yeah.
why not? It's all encompassing. And what else we do. So if you or someone is seeking resources because they are ready to figure out their next step in leaving their domestic violence situation, you again go to confrontingdomesticviolence.org. On the home page, there is a form that you can fill out confidentially, and someone from our office will get in touch with you immediately. There's also on the resource page on the left-hand side, there's a column and it talks about Family Justice Center, women's law, which also covers men, and,
Thank you for
HUD
noting that.
housing. Mm-hmm. Yeah,
So
so
this
there's
is
like,
not just for women. This is women
that's right.
and men.
That's right.
I love it because, for us, like with Been There, Got Out, we're like, abuse is a human issue.
Yes.
It is not a gender issue. It's a human issue. Maybe it manifests differently sometimes, but it's a huge problem.
Yeah, absolutely. That's correct. It does not discriminate. Um, So yeah, so then on the resource page as well, on the right-hand side, you'll see a search field. You can type in an address, I'm sorry, a zip code, a city. You type that in, and it's like a full directory of resources in that area specifically. And you can, based on the needs, start contacting those individuals. Some of them are 24 hours, some of them welcome pets. It's all based on circumstances. So, you just go through what I'll call like the old school yellow pages,
That's okay.
and that's right. And see what, what renders to your needs immediately. On top of that, when we do get on the call, I have a roster of, gosh, probably over 70 organizations that are actively being operated and actively being funded. So this way, when I give out a 1-800 number or I'm that referral, you are not getting a disconnected number and you're not getting a brick wall. So that's how we're making sure that we continuously bridge those gaps. I attend monthly roundtables with different agencies, mostly in California, but I also have a network in Florida, a network in New York, a network in most of the bigger cities and states. I do recognize that, rural areas are definitely prone to domestic violence. I don't not help anyone. I'm saying that's so wrong. I help
I
anyone and
help
everyone. It
everyone.
doesn't, yeah. If you find me, I'm going to help however I can. We will work together, you know.
Excellent. Well, I know you are going to hear from some of ours.
I hope so. Well, no, I don't know what I mean by that. Wait, I hope so for the SB 553 and for survivors that may need real-time resources. Yes, I look forward to being able to help you. Absolutely 100%.
Oh my gosh. Thank you so much, Agape, for coming on and getting us excited and hopeful for some more domestic violence protections and resources. Like, thank you
Yes.
for the work that you're doing.
And thank you so much for having me here and allowing me to get on my rant about it and really get,
Loved it.
passionate about the whole workplace thing because, I do believe that that is a great fresh start and a new beginning, to what can be a ripple effect across the nation.
I know it's a wide net.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a great way to do it. All right. Well, we are definitely going to be in touch again, and this is not going to be the last conversation.
All right. Thank you. Thank you very much.
All right, my pleasure. Okay, we'll talk soon.
Okay. Bye-bye.